The year was 2347, and humanity had spread across 17 star systems. Admiral Catherine Cole stood on the bridge of the United Earth vessel Defiance and watched the holographic display flicker with incoming data. Her gray eyes narrowed as she processed what she was seeing. She had been in command of this ship for 7 years and had seen many strange things in the depths of space, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Commander Daniel Price worked his console with practiced efficiency. His fingers moved across the glowing buttons as numbers and symbols scrolled across his screen. He was a young man, with dark hair and a serious face. He had served under Admiral Cole for 5 years and trusted her completely. But right now his hands were shaking slightly. "Confirmed, Admiral," he said quietly. 312 vessels have just exited slipspace at the edge of the Kepler system. They are not responding to any of our communication frequencies. The ships are unlike anything in our database. Their design appears organic, and their energy signatures are completely foreign. Catherine took a deep breath and stepped closer to the main viewing screen. The alien fleet hung in space like a swarm of strange sea creatures. Their hulls were curved and twisted in ways that made no logical sense. They were beautiful in a terrifying way. She had spent 40 years in the United Earth Navy. She had seen pirates, and rebels, and corporate raiders. But this was different. This was first contact with an alien civilization. And they had brought a war fleet. Lieutenant Amy Dawson sat at the communications station. She was barely 25 years old, with red hair and freckles across her nose. This was her first deep space assignment. She had dreamed of meeting aliens since she was a little girl reading science fiction books in her bedroom. But she had imagined something friendlier than this. Admiral Dawson said with a trembling voice, "I am detecting an incoming transmission from the lead vessel. Should I put it on screen?" Catherine nodded slowly. "Open all channels," she ordered. "And make sure we are recording everything. Whatever happens here today, the people of Earth need to know about it." The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. Catherine felt her stomach tighten. The creature was vaguely humanoid, but stretched and angular. Its skin shifted colors like oil on water, moving through shades of purple and blue and green. Its eyes were completely black with no visible pupils or whites. When it spoke, its mouth moved in ways that did not match the translated words. "I am Voice Commander Celtrix of the Vorthani Dominion," the alien said. Its voice was cold and flat, as if it was reading from a script it had used many times before. "Your species occupies territory that belongs to us by right of conquest. You have 1 cycle of your world rotation to evacuate all settlements in this system. Failure to comply will result in your complete elimination. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification." Catherine felt a cold fury building in her chest. Behind her, she could hear the sharp intake of breath from her crew. 2 billion human beings lived in the Kepler system, families and children and workers who had built their lives among these stars. And this alien was telling them to abandon everything or die. Voice Commander Catherine replied, keeping her voice steady and calm. "The Kepler system has been home to human beings for more than a century. We have built cities and farms and schools here. Our children have been born here. We will not abandon our people based on a threat from an unknown power. I suggest we discuss this matter through proper diplomatic channels." The alien face twisted into something that might have been amusement. Its black eyes seemed to gleam with cruel pleasure. "You misunderstand it," said the Vorthani. "Do not negotiate with lesser species. We have conquered 47 civilizations across this galaxy. Each one believed they were special. Each one believed they could resist. Each one was wrong. You will be 48. Your primitive vessels cannot stand against our weapons. Your soldiers cannot match our warriors. You are nothing but insects waiting to be crushed." Catherine clenched her fists at her sides. She wanted to scream at this creature. She wanted to tell it exactly what she thought of its arrogance. But she was an admiral, and admirals did not lose their temper, so she kept her voice calm, even as her heart pounded with anger. "We are not insects," she said quietly, "and we do not respond well to threats. I am giving you one chance to reconsider your position. Withdraw your fleet, and we can talk like civilized beings. Continue on this path and you will learn why humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us." The alien laughed. It was an ugly sound that made Catherine's skin crawl. "Brave words. From a dying species," it said. "We will return when your deadline expires. If you have not fled by then, we will destroy everything you have built. Your cities will burn. Your people will die. And your species will be nothing but a footnote in our history. Enjoy your final hours, human." The transmission cut off. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Catherine could feel the fear radiating from her crew. They were good people, loyal and brave and dedicated, but they had never faced anything like this. None of them had. Lieutenant Dawson spoke first. Her voice was small and scared. "Admiral, what do we do?" Catherine turned to face her crew. She looked at each of them in turn. Daniel Price, with his steady hands now trembling on his console. Amy Dawson, with tears forming in her young eyes. Chief Engineer Robert Vance, standing by the door with his weathered face pale and drawn. Navigator Susan Park, frozen at her station, with her fingers hovering over unfinished calculations. "We do what humans have always done," Catherine said firmly. "We fight, we adapt, we survive. Get me a secure line to Earth Command immediately. Begin evacuation protocols for all non-essential personnel. Every civilian ship in this system needs to start moving toward the jump points now. And I want a full tactical analysis of those alien vessels within the hour." She walked to the viewing port and stared out at the distant alien fleet. 312 ships, waiting to destroy everything humanity had built here. They thought humans would run. They thought humans would surrender. They had conquered 47 species and expected the same result. They had no idea what they had just started. "This system has 12 hours to prepare for war," Catherine said quietly. "And when that deadline expires, those aliens are going to learn something that 47 species before us never had the chance to teach them. Humanity does not go quietly into the night." President Marcus Young had been in office for only 18 months when the Vorthani ultimatum reached Earth. He was a tall man, with graying hair and kind eyes that had seen too much in his 60 years of life. He had been a teacher before entering politics. He had spent his career trying to make the world better for the next generation. Now, he sat in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by military advisors and political leaders from every human world, and wondered if there would be a next generation at all. The room was massive and filled with holographic displays showing data from across human space. Representatives from all 17 colony worlds were present, either in person or via secure video link. The faces on those screens showed the same expression of fear and disbelief that Marcus felt in his own heart. This was supposed to be the golden age of humanity. They had conquered disease and poverty and spread across the stars. They were not supposed to face extinction at the hands of hostile aliens. "Give me options," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm despite the storm raging inside him. "I need to know what we are dealing with and what we can do about it." General Patricia Holt stepped forward. She was the commander of all United Earth military forces. A small woman with iron-gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. She had fought in 3 colonial conflicts and was considered the finest tactical mind in human history. But even she looked uncertain as she approached the main display. "Sir, we have 340 combat-ready vessels spread across our territory," she began. "If we consolidate our forces, we can field a fleet of approximately 200 ships at Kepler within 72 hours. The remaining vessels will need to protect our other colonies in case this is not their only attack force." Marcus nodded slowly. "And the enemy?" he asked. "Over 300 ships in their initial wave, sir. Our intelligence suggests they have thousands more in reserve, based on Admiral Cole's communication with their commander. They claim to have been conquering species for centuries. Their technology is advanced, but our initial scans show it is not magic. Their weapons are powerful, but they appear to recharge slowly. Their shields are strong, but they have specific frequency vulnerabilities that our scientists are already working to exploit. Secretary of Defense Howard Blake leaned forward in his chair. He was a heavy-set man with a bald head and worried eyes. He had spent his career preparing for threats that never came. Now the threat was here, and it was worse than anything he had imagined. "What are our chances?" he asked quietly. Patricia paused for a moment. Her jaw tightened and her eyes grew hard. "In a straight fight," she said honestly, 20% at best. They have more ships and more experience. They have been doing this for longer than our species has had written language. The room fell silent. 20%. 1 chance in 5. Those were not good odds when the stakes were the survival of humanity. "But we are not planning a straight fight," Patricia continued. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "The Vorthani expect us to run or surrender. Every species they have encountered has done one or the other. They do not understand humans. They do not know that we have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. They do not know about our capacity for adaptation and innovation, and sheer stubborn refusal to quit when the odds are against us." She activated a holographic display showing the Kepler system in perfect detail. The alien fleet appeared as red dots, clustered near the outer edge. The human forces appeared as blue dots, gathered around the inner planets. "We have been developing experimental weapons systems for decades," she explained. "Directed energy weapons that can cut through shields like paper. Mass drivers that can accelerate projectiles to near light speed. Autonomous drone swarms that can overwhelm any defense through sheer numbers. None of them were ever deployed because they were considered too dangerous and too destabilizing for use against other humans. I am recommending we deploy everything we have." Marcus looked around the room. He saw fear on many faces, but also something else. A spark of hope, a glimmer of determination. They had not reached their positions by giving up when things got hard. "The Vorthani gave us an ultimatum," he said, slowly rising to his feet. "I think it is time we gave them one of our own." He faced the assembled leaders with his shoulders squared and his voice strong. "Contact every human world," he ordered. "Every ship, and every soldier, and every engineer. We have 72 hours to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. We did not survive ice ages and plagues and world wars and climate collapse to be conquered by the first aliens who point a gun at us." Admiral Catherine Cole's face appeared on one of the screens. She was still on the Defiance at Kepler, coordinating local defenses. "Mr. President," she said, "my crews are ready to fight. We just need to know that Earth stands with us." Marcus looked at her weathered face. She had served humanity for 40 years. She had given everything to protect the people of Earth. And now, she was asking if her home would abandon her. "Admiral," he said firmly, "Earth stands with you. Every human world stands with you. Tell your people that help is coming. Tell them that they are not alone. And tell those aliens that they picked the wrong species to threaten." The room erupted in activity. Officers began sending orders across human space. Engineers started preparing weapons that had never been tested in combat. Soldiers began boarding ships that would carry them to the greatest battle in human history. Patricia Holt approached Marcus quietly. "Sir," she said, "even with everything we have, this will be the hardest fight our species has ever faced. We will lose ships, and we will lose people. Are you prepared for that?" Marcus looked at the display showing the distant alien fleet. 300 ships waiting to destroy humanity. Behind him, 17 worlds full of people who trusted him to keep them safe. "General," he said quietly, "I am prepared to do whatever it takes to ensure that humanity survives. If we lose this fight, there will be no one left to mourn us. So we will not lose. We cannot lose. The alternative is simply not acceptable." He turned back to the room full of leaders and warriors preparing for war. Across human space, the war machine was waking up. Factories were switching to military production. Training camps were activating reserve soldiers. Scientists were finalizing weapons that could turn the tide of battle. Humanity had received an ultimatum. Now they were preparing to deliver their response. Captain Ryan Moore had commanded the destroyer Relentless for 3 years. He was a quiet man, with brown hair and green eyes, that always seemed to be calculating something. He had joined the Navy at 18 because he wanted to see the stars. He had never expected to lead his ship into humanity's first interstellar war. But as his vessel joined the growing fleet at Kepler, he felt something unexpected rising in his chest. Pride. All around him, ships were arriving from across human space. Battleships with massive guns that could crack a moon. Cruisers built for speed and maneuverability. Destroyers like his own, designed for close combat and escort duty. Carriers loaded with fighter craft and bomber squadrons. Ships that had never worked together before were now forming into battle groups. Engineers from a dozen worlds were sharing technology and modifications. Soldiers who had never met were becoming brothers and sisters in arms. His executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, stood beside him on the bridge. She was a small woman, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and brown eyes that sparkled with intelligence. She had been his second in command for 2 years, and he trusted her judgment completely. "Final count is in, Captain," she said, reading from her datapad. 217 combat vessels have arrived so far. 47 support ships, including medical frigates and supply haulers. And something else. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Something else?" he asked. Maria smiled despite the tension in the air. "Volunteers," she said. "Civilian ships have been arriving for the past 6 hours. Freighters and mining vessels and cargo haulers. Even passenger liners. They are not armed, and they have no military training. But they are here. They want to help." Ryan felt a lump forming in his throat. He had always been proud of humanity, but this was something different. These were ordinary people with ordinary lives who had chosen to fly into a war zone because they could not stand by while others fought for them. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Over 400 so far, and more are arriving every hour. They are offering to serve as medical ships and supply runners and evacuation transports. Some of the mining ships are volunteering to ram enemy vessels if necessary. They know they might die. They came anyway." Ryan turned to look out the main viewing port. The fleet stretched across space as far as he could see. Military vessels in tight formation. Civilian ships clustering behind them. Hundreds of lights against the darkness. Humanity gathering to face its greatest challenge. On the main screen, Admiral Cole's flagship, the Defiance, was coordinating the growing fleet. The woman had become a symbol of human resistance in just 3 days. Her face was on every news broadcast across human space. Her words were being repeated in homes and schools and workplaces on 17 worlds. She had told the aliens that humanity would not surrender. And humanity had answered her call. A priority message appeared on Ryan's console. He opened it and read the words carefully. "All captains, this is Admiral Cole. In 6 hours the Vorthani deadline expires. They expect us to run. They expect us to beg. They have never been more wrong. At 0600 hours tomorrow, we will transmit humanity's response. Every ship will broadcast the same message on every frequency so loud that every species in the galaxy will hear us. We are not victims. We are not prey. We are humanity. And we do not surrender. Prepare your crews. Tomorrow we show the universe who we are." Ryan closed the message and looked at Maria. "Get the crew together," he said. "All of them. I want to address them personally." An hour later, he stood in the main cargo bay surrounded by 247 faces. Young and old. Men and women. Scared and determined. His people. They had served with him through training exercises and patrol missions and minor skirmishes with pirates. But none of them had ever faced anything like this. "In a few hours," he said, his voice carrying across the silent bay, "we are going to fight an enemy that has never lost. They have conquered dozens of species. They have destroyed civilizations older than ours. They think we are just another conquest, just another number to add to their list. But they made a mistake." He paused and looked at each face in turn. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something stronger. Something that had carried humanity through every crisis in its history. They threatened our homes, he continued. Our families, our children. They told us to run or die. And they gave us time to prepare. That was their mistake. Because humans do not use that time to pack our bags and flee. We use it to sharpen our weapons and harden our resolve. Chief Engineer Linda Hayes stood near the front of the crowd. She was an older woman, with gray streaks in her black hair and hands, calloused from decades of work. She had kept the relentless running through breakdowns and battles and everything in between. She nodded slowly as Ryan spoke. We might not all survive tomorrow, Ryan admitted. That is the truth, and you deserve to hear it. But I promise you this. Every one of us will make them remember this day. Every one of us will show them that humans do not go quietly. We fight. We adapt. We endure. And when this is over, win or lose, the galaxy will know our name. The cargo bay erupted in cheers. Fists pumped in the air. Voices shouted promises of courage and defiance. Ryan felt tears forming in his eyes, but he held them back. There would be time for emotion later. 1. Right now, his people needed him to be strong. Maria stepped up beside him as the crew dispersed to their stations. Do you really believe we can win? She asked quietly. Ryan watched his crew walking away. Young officers checking their weapons, engineers reviewing system diagnostics, medical staff preparing for casualties they hoped would never come. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I believe in them, he said simply. And I believe in humanity. We have survived worse than this. Ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed us. Every time we fell, we got back up. Every time someone said we were finished, we proved them wrong. This is just another challenge. Another obstacle to overcome. And we will overcome it the same way we always have. He turned to face the viewing port where the alien fleet waited in the distance. 300 ships that thought humanity was easy prey. Tomorrow, he said quietly, those aliens learn why the universe should fear us. Voice Commander Celtrix stood on the command deck of the Vorthani flagship and watched the human fleet with contempt. The deadline had passed. The primitives had not fled. Instead, they had gathered more vessels like prey animals huddling together for warmth. He had seen this behavior before in other species. The desperate hope that numbers would somehow save them from the inevitable. His ship was called the Divine Judgment in the Vorthani language. It was a massive vessel 3 kilometers long, with weapons capable of cracking planets. He had commanded it for 50 cycles and had used it to destroy 17 civilizations. The walls of his quarters were decorated with trophies from conquered worlds, flags and weapons, and preserved specimens of the species he had exterminated. Soon, he would add human artifacts to his collection. Begin the advance, he ordered. Target their largest vessels first. Once their command structure collapses, the rest will scatter like frightened animals. This should be finished within a few hours. His officers moved to obey. The Vorthani fleet began to shift formation, preparing for the attack that would end humanity's brief existence among the stars. Celtrix felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. This was what he lived for. The moment before conquest, when victory was certain, but not yet achieved. But before the fleet could move, every communication system on every Vorthani ship activated simultaneously. Screens that had been showing tactical data suddenly flickered and changed. A human face appeared, a female with gray hair and cold eyes that showed no fear at all. Admiral Catherine Cole. Celtrix felt a flash of irritation. The human was interrupting his attack with some desperate plea for mercy. He had heard such pleas many times before. They were always pathetic, and they never changed anything. But the human did not beg. Attention, Vorthani Dominion, she said. Her voice was calm and measured and utterly without fear. This is Admiral Catherine Cole, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Government and all human worlds. You have threatened our people. You have demanded our surrender. You have given us an ultimatum. Now we give you ours. Celtrix watched in confusion as the human fleet began to move. But they were not moving backward. They were not retreating. They were advancing. 200 warships and hundreds of civilian vessels moving forward in perfect formation, moving toward his fleet, moving toward battle. 3 days ago, the admiral continued, you told us we had no chance. You told us you had conquered 47 species. You told us to run. We have spent those 3 days preparing our response. On the Vorthani sensors, something strange was happening. The human ships were deploying weapons systems that had not been visible before. Energy signatures were spiking across their fleet. Massive guns were charging with power readings that exceeded anything in the Vorthani database. And behind the combat vessels, hundreds of civilian ships were spreading out, forming a second line that stretched across the entire system. We are humanity, Catherine Cole said. We have survived extinction events that killed 90% of all life on our world. We have survived plagues that killed millions. We have survived wars that burned our cities to ash. We have crawled from caves to the stars through sheer determination and refusal to quit. You are not the first enemy we have faced, and you will not be the last. Celtrix felt something unfamiliar, a cold sensation in his stomach that spread through his body like poison. He had felt this sensation before, long ago when he was young and weak, before he had risen to command, before he had learned that the strong always conquered the weak. Fear. This was what the conquered species called fear. Here is our ultimatum, the admiral said. Her eyes hardened, and her voice grew cold. Withdraw from human space immediately. Return to your territory. Never threaten our people again. Do this, and there will be peace between our species. We do not seek your destruction. We do not want war, but we will not be bullied, and we will not be conquered. She paused, and Celtrix saw something in her eyes that he had never seen in any of his victims. Not desperation, not hope, something far more dangerous. Certainty. Refuse, she continued. And we will show you why every species in this galaxy should fear the word human. We have prepared weapons you cannot imagine. We have soldiers who will fight to their last breath. We have civilians who have volunteered to die rather than see their worlds enslaved. Our fleet is prepared and ready for war. This is not a bluff. This is not negotiation. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Celtrix stared at the screen. Around him, his officers were silent. On their sensors, the human fleet continued to advance. 200 warships and 400 civilian vessels moving in perfect formation, broadcasting a single word on every frequency that echoed through space like a battle cry. Humanity, humanity, humanity. Voice Commander, one of his officers asked. His voice was uncertain in a way that Celtrix had never heard before. What are your orders? Celtrix looked at the approaching fleet. He had conquered 47 species. He had destroyed civilizations that were ancient when humanity was still living in caves. He had never lost a battle. He had never even considered the possibility of defeat. But looking at those human ships advancing without fear, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. These creatures were different. They did not beg. They did not run. They gave ultimatums to their conquerors and demanded surrender. We attack, he said, forcing confidence into his voice. They are bluffing. No primitive species could threaten us. Prepare all weapons and advance on my command. But even as he gave the order, Celtrix could not shake the cold feeling in his stomach. The feeling that perhaps for the first time in 3 centuries the Vorthani had made a terrible mistake. The human fleet continued to advance. Behind them, 17 star systems full of people who refused to surrender. In front of them, an ancient empire that had never known defeat. The moment of truth was approaching. The Vorthani did not withdraw. They never seriously considered it. 3 centuries of conquest had made them arrogant and blind to the possibility that any species could truly threaten them. They had crushed 47 civilizations. They had destroyed worlds and exterminated entire peoples. They could not imagine that these primitive humans would be any different. It was the last mistake they would ever make. At 0614 hours, the human fleet opened fire. The first wave consisted of autonomous drone swarms. Thousands of small craft poured from the carriers and destroyers. They were not piloted by humans but by advanced computers that could react faster than any living creature. They swarmed toward the Vorthani fleet, like angry insects. Overwhelming point defenses through sheer numbers. The aliens had never faced anything like this. Their weapons were designed to destroy large ships, not clouds of tiny attackers. They fired desperately, but for every drone they destroyed, 10 more took its place. And while they struggled to track the swarms, the main human fleet closed to optimal weapons range. Admiral Cole commanded from the center of the formation. Her voice was steady as she coordinated over 200 vessels. All ships execute attack pattern. Delta, she ordered. Focus fire on their command ships. Take out their leadership and the rest will falter. This is what we trained for. This is what we prepared for. Make every shot count. On the destroyer, relentless Captain Ryan Moore pushed his ship to her limits. The vessel weaved through enemy fire while his weapons officers poured directed energy into a Vorthani cruiser. The alien ship's shields flickered and died under the sustained assault. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as vital systems failed one after another. Beside him, Maria Santos coordinated damage control as the ship shuddered under alien weapons fire. Hull breach on Deck 7, she reported calmly. Containment holding. Weapons still at 90%. Engineering reports minor damage to the port engine. But we can still fight. Keep firing, Ryan ordered. Do not give them a moment to recover. The moment they catch their breath is the moment they start winning. We need to keep them off balance. Across the battle space, human ships were taking damage. The Vorthani weapons were powerful, and their aim was deadly. The cruiser Valiant took a direct hit to her bridge, killing her captain and senior officers instantly. The destroyer Horizon lost her engines and drifted helplessly until a civilian freighter risked enemy fire to tow her to safety. The carrier Freedom burned from bow to stern before her crew finally managed to contain the flames. But for every human ship lost, 2 or 3 alien vessels were crippled or destroyed. The experimental weapons that had been too dangerous for human conflicts proved devastatingly effective against alien shields. Mass drivers punched through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable. Directed energy beams sliced through hulls like hot knives through butter. And always, the drone swarms kept attacking. Distracting. Overwhelming. The Vorthani had never faced an opponent who fought back with such ferocity, such coordination, such absolute refusal to accept defeat. On the Divine Judgment voice, Commander Celtrix watched his fleet crumble. Ship after ship reported critical damage. Commanders who had never lost a battle were screaming for reinforcements that did not exist. The formations that had conquered 47 species were breaking apart as individual captains panicked and fled. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They are primitives. They should be running. They should be begging for mercy." But the humans did not run. And they did not beg. They fought with a fury that Celtrix had never seen in any species. They fought like they had nothing to lose. They fought like their very existence depended on victory. Because it did. On the Defiance, Admiral Cole watched the battle unfold on her tactical display. The Vorthani were wavering. Their formation was collapsing. Their command ships were burning. But the battle was not over yet. There was one more thing she needed to do. Signal all civilian ships, she ordered. Execute humanitarian protocol. The civilian vessels surged forward, not to attack but to rescue. They swept through the battle space, picking up escape pods from destroyed ships, both human and Vorthani. Medical ships began treating wounded from both sides. Human doctors working to save alien lives. Mining vessels used their equipment to push debris away from damaged vessels, creating safe corridors for evacuation. Voice Commander Celtrix watched in disbelief as human civilians rescued his own crew members. Vorthani soldiers who had been trained to hate and destroy were being pulled from burning escape pods by humans who treated their wounds and gave them water and spoke to them in calm voices. "They are saving our people," one of his officers whispered. "Why would they save our people? We came to destroy them. We came to enslave them. Why would they show us mercy?" The answer came from the human admiral broadcasting on an open channel. Voice Commander Celtrix, her voice said. Your fleet is broken. Your command ships are destroyed. You have lost. But humanity does not seek the extinction of your kind. We seek only peace. Withdraw your remaining ships. Return to your territory. Let this battle be the end of our conflict, not the beginning of a greater war. Celtrix looked at his tactical display. Of his original 312 ships, fewer than 90 remained combat-capable. The humans had lost ships as well, but their formation held. Their civilians were still rescuing survivors. Their fleet was still ready to fight. And behind them he knew were 17 star systems full of more humans. More ships. More soldiers. More of this relentless, terrifying species that saved its enemies even as it destroyed them. All ships, Celtrix said quietly. Begin withdrawal. Set course for the border. The remaining Vorthani vessels turned and fled. On the Defiance, Admiral Catherine Cole allowed herself a moment of relief. Around her officers were cheering and crying and embracing. They had done the impossible. They had faced an ancient conquering empire and sent it running. She activated the fleet-wide channel. This is Admiral Cole, she said. The enemy is withdrawing. All ships cease fire but maintain defensive positions. Search and rescue operations are priority 1. Today, humanity sent a message to the galaxy. We do not surrender. We do not abandon our own. And we do not let our enemies define who we are. She paused and looked out at the stars where the Vorthani fleet was disappearing into slipspace. To everyone who fought today, thank you. To everyone we lost, we will remember you. And to every species watching, know this. Humanity comes in peace. But we will never come as victims. Our fleet was prepared and ready for war. And now the galaxy knows why. The Battle of Kepler became the defining moment in human history. Within months, diplomatic channels opened with dozens of species who had been watching. Many had been conquered by the Vorthani, or lived in fear of them. Now they saw an alternative. A species that fought with ferocity but also with mercy. That destroyed its enemies but saved their survivors. That refused to surrender, but also refused to become monsters. The Vorthani dominion eventually collapsed as conquered species rose up inspired by humanity's example. And across the stars, a new saying spread among the many peoples of the galaxy. Never threaten a human's home. Never underestimate their resolve. And never give them time to prepare. Humanity had announced itself to the universe, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something far more dangerous. A species that would fight for what it loved and show mercy to those it defeated. The galaxy would never be the same.